Beach area, I think.
Yeah,
Eagle River.
Is that LAS good?
Oh, Girdwood?
Girdwood, yeah. So I'm trying to get into what they're working on his house with his partners. Owns.
Yeah, Girdwood's really pretty. So I did hear from Pam that she was going to be here, so give her another minute.
Mike's out of town, right?
Yeah. I haven't heard from Tom.
He said he might get here.
You want to slide a window open or two?
I know, with weather like this, you don't want to miss out on any of it. I seem destroyed because I feel destroyed. We just created up an 1,100 pound triple pane slider. It's 12 feet by almost 8 feet. Ordered a special machine to lift it. They did all the math on it, calculating out my distances and everything. We're going through the paperwork and it says like, if the carriage is overloaded, the machine will turn off, the engine will cut. I'm like, that seems really odd. So that means you could get yourself into a position and then reach one of those states and it would just turn off. With like, so how would I ever, this is, you have to remove the item. Really? So now that we're there, and how do I get that item out? It's 1,100 pounds it took us. We sent the boom into the barn. Freaking jacked up this window, lifted it, built a carriage, put it on, strapped it in. Get it started, all set. I was like,
Really?
oh my God, you're kidding.
How's it going?
So now it's just hanging,
Good.
it's just elevated in the barn. I'm like,
I am still a master.
Yeah.
Okay,
Hey, I'm still alive, right?
there you
It
go.
works.
I changed.
Yeah.
I think we can call it order. Review our minutes.
Take want some minutes.
You're very kind.
Here's your-
Good.
I got a message from Tom. Yes, he likes me. I'm under the weather and won't be able to attend. Take care, Brian.
say,
That one's been around, huh?
track my dental usage.
The Palm Room.
Oh yeah, that's from Seattle. That's
Yeah.
And
I
to
thought I was
your
gonna say,
frustration.
the song. Well, now we're getting to the Proverbs.
So we got a chance to review those?
Yep.
Anyone like to make a motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second? Thank you, Dick. Okay, those have been accepted. Gonna take the vote, actually.
Yeah.
Let's take a vote. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Prospect Farm. I got attacked by a dog at Prospect Farm on Sunday. That was exciting.
Wow. What, how attacked?
Oh,
you?
not attacked, just like nipped
In
several
the
times.
lower part of your leg?
Yeah.
You riding a bike or?
Break the
Yes.
skin?
Yeah.
I bet it's the same person that I've been.
Golden Retriever?
No,
Did it break the skin?
No.
I've been bit 4 times by the same person.
Well, don't you report the dogs? I mean, shouldn't those dogs be on leashes?
The dog should have been on a leash,
Yeah.
but
Did you stop?
I tried to, anyway, it's not important. It's just something we need to consider going forward in our signage of like having some sort of, at least, please leash your dog. Like going forward, if like a multi-use trail, that should probably be emphasized that I love dogs. I understand dogs. I know that the dog was a little frightened and so it was reacting in a way, but if I don't hold the dog in blame.
It's the owner, it should have been.
Right,
controlled.
and I think that they were just out for an early Sunday morning walk and didn't expect to see anyone. I tried to time I tried to space them, but they stopped on the hill and I didn't want to stop on a hill and then have to walk the rest of the way with the dog chasing me, so.
Yeah. Well,
Anyways,
it's tricky because I think people typically go there so their dogs are off leash,
yeah,
you know, because it's
and I feel like that's a lot
the
of
feeling of
people's.
being expands.
Yeah.
Were you on the road or the trail?
I was just below the orchard, so going up towards.
Right. So that's like not a spot you want
Yeah.
to.
I think generally as a minimum, it should be either the dog's leashed or he's under control,
Right.
control,
Right.
which is the way the Forest Service, et cetera,
Right.
works, yeah.
So.
Because it's not fair to the people who have dogs who are under control that their dog always has to be leashed in
Do you know the
Wild
person
setting.
whose dog it was?
They didn't look familiar, so. And he had a little kid in a backpack, so that's also why he wasn't able to like get at the dog. He was kind of like trying to keep the kid from falling out. I think just in our, I would like our position there that people of the town have expressed that it's an important place to take their dogs up there. So I don't want to have
Right.
like, we encourage people to take their dogs up there, but
It's multi-use.
multi-use and just have that like, please, like, I think, because we had discussed updating that sign.
Yeah, and in the winter with ski touring, it's
Right,
either leashed or under control.
Mm.
right.
And I think that's a good,
Yeah.
Maybe something sounds silly, but maybe if people are just almost reminded of like what the repercussion is of like when your dog bites somebody. Like it's not a joke. I mean, as
Why
much as when you
not?
asked did I report it, well, no, because I'm trying to get to the Wildcat Valley Trail or wherever I'm on a mission. I'm not like, what do you turn around and be like, get service, try to call? It just doesn't happen, even though it's been the same. One person probably 3 times and one person probably twice. And they know their dogs are poorly managed.
take a picture.
Yeah, I usually just think like, how could this ever
And then
happen
you
again?
put the picture up on the bulletin board on the way and beware bikers.
Yeah, beware of this
Yeah.
dog.
Yeah,
But it's a bummer.
yeah, but I think just going forward, we should incorporate, just make sure we have that in our mind and our signage.
Yeah.
So can
Yeah, on Prospect, because I've been away, I haven't done anything. I'm gonna be sending a letter to the Forest Service about moving the gate. And I will jump in and start doing the first draft on the sign up there as well.
Okay. Dude. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, is there any clear definition of, you know, the dog on a leash or well maintained? Like, is that an RSA? Is it just, I
It's a
mean,
town
I
ordinance.
think it's
I think
nice
it's a
for,
town ordinance.
yeah, for people that have seen it and be like,
I
I'm
think
not-
that maybe
But we
should-
can put it in the new signage up there because it parallels with,
So maybe we should take a look at the actual wording of
Yeah.
the ordinance.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at that as well.
I just think the reason that's nice is because then you don't have to feel like that. It's not like you're the jerk, you're the guy who's being bothered by the dog. You can be like, hey,
But if you could actually,
Clearly.
depending on how big the ordinance is, you might be able to just put it up there verbatim.
Yeah.
right. just
I'll
be
take a
like,
look at that.
Clearly, this is, I love dogs too. It's not like being bit by them.
Mm.
Did you have something, Dave?
Oh, yeah, it wasn't about that though.
Okay.
It's about Prospect. We're gonna have a maintenance problem. I talked to Rick Davis. He's very upset about the brush piles that were left there. All right, the brush piles, it was a bad call not to burn them in place when the snow was on the ground. That was the way to do it. We'll deal with it now, but it's going to be, I don't know if we can get up there with a tractor with a brush grabber
Mm.
and move them out of the way. I mean, this idea that it was going to be for, what, habitat for the little animals. I think the habitat up there is pretty good because, you know, it's not a development. We're not talking about lawns and paved roads and cut all the trees. They're pretty well naturalized up there. They've got their little habitats pretty well worked out. So I think now, however we deal with it, because if we don't deal with these brush piles, it's going to just accumulate because Rick can't get close enough into the trees. And he does, I didn't realize, he does a lot of handwork up there too with a brush saw or a weed whacker. It's not just all tractor work. So I don't know what the answer is this year. Maybe get somebody up there that can grab the piles. I know I could kind of do it with my tractor, but I don't have a grabber. I have
I
forks.
think forks would do it.
Yeah, they might. I have forks on my tractor. I could do that. I've moved brush piles with it. But
That was my only feeling once that window of time was going. I was like, I think you just have to go up with forks and just, you know, at least break it up a bit so that there could be handwork done alongside of it.
yeah, well, if we just get the bulk of it out of the way and then drive over it and pack it down, it should be pretty brittle by now.
Yeah. And I
And
don't,
break up.
I think Dudley went back up and he might have cut again before things warmed up. I felt like he had said that he wanted to get a couple of the trees that we had gotten to a point
Yeah.
pruned to the next level, so there might be more than I last saw, or I last paid attention to.
But as this goes on, let's in the future not leave brush piles. If the snow's on the ground, it's illegal burning. It's the best way to get rid of it. I mean, Dudley went up there, he had kindling and
Oh, yeah,
he was all set to do a burn, but
yeah, I support it, but I mean, I'm not against burning up there for that. It's really frustrating to deal with Apple in particular. Just moving it more than once it's horrendous.
Is it, well, okay. Rick mows in August, is that typically?
yeah, I'll talk to him again and see when he's gonna be there.
We wait till after the nesting, so I think it's more like September.
Yeah, it's usually late in the season if we can, because then, you know, birds or whatever that are in field, you have, you know, the young ones have fledged and you're not disturbing them.
Is it enough that it doesn't need to be removed, but can it get dragged or?
Both, yeah,
Okay.
we could drag it. What happens is the grasses grow. Well,
Right.
first off, the apple, when you're pruning a tree like those, everything's so intertwined. As soon as they hit the ground and they make contact, you just want to be pulling it out immediately and burning it or dealing with it. Now that it's done that, and then the grasses get into it, it can be really hard
Okay.
to separate it without, like I said, it's hard to separate it amongst itself. And once it's had some time to kind of naturalize with the grasses, it can be hard. I just couldn't rally the troops.
Yeah, okay. I may go up there soon.
You may call.
Okay. See what I can do with it, just by hand, just to get
Yeah.
logistics. I think if we had to organize something with the tractor, this
Okay,
would come to that.
and I'll talk to Rick. I think he's done a brush haul on one of his tractors, one of his many tractors.
Yeah.
I'll just ask him, but we should, you know, if we can clear it, because what happens is you avoid it, that pile this year,
Right.
and then some other
That's
poplar grows up, and then you avoid that, and it just expands.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And then, you know, how many years we've been maintaining that, and it's well worth it. I think that for wildlife habitat alone, it's a really good effort.
Yeah.
And, you know, we should do our best to keep it up.
It's the orchard. It should stay that way.
I guess circling back to the plan, do you need anything else on the gate moving letter? Just,
No, what I was gonna do is send a letter to the Forest Service, to the district,
you know,
telling them, you know, that here's a copy of the plan, this is the decision to move it. We'd like to open the conversation with you, and I was gonna send a CC to the selectmen at the same time, so that everybody's on the same page.
okay.
You want to send a letter to Lions and just see if it's, you know, just a short letter. Now,
Yeah.
Are you interested in any dialogue about the property?
I think it would be worth sending a letter, you know,
Yeah.
from the Conservation Commission, yeah.
You don't know if you don't ask.
Yeah. I know that Peter Benson had
That's how I got
talked,
my first date.
Peter Benson had talked with him before he went to Florida at the beginning of the winter, and he was ambivalent. I mean, non-committal, just so. But yeah, we ought to open. I don't know if it makes sense to send a letter or just to have an informal conversation. I don't really know.
Any which way, just
Yeah,
to
yeah,
see if it's even worth
Yeah.
us to even dream
Dream
about it.
about it.
yeah.
Okay.
You know, if he just says, nah, I'm never gonna do that. Okay, you know, then we know that.
I'm willing to draft the letter because, I mean, the commission does have some money available. I don't know what his asking price would be because that's obviously, it's public dollars, so it has to be fair market value.
Well, we could have part of our money and go to the town and say,
Yeah,
folks, you want to add another 100 acres
Yep.
up there? It'll cost us $40,000.
Okay.
Spread that across the town.
I'll draft it.
With our money,
Yeah, okay.
it could be a very sweet deal.
Absolutely.
Sweet, I shouldn't say that.
Okay.
Were you one of the selectmen when they, because he bought the property from Carta, and of course they wanted to do a development up there, and they got,
Right, that
they were gonna
was-
take the case.
No, I was not on the board then, but I remember it well because it was, everybody was like, oh my goodness.
Yeah. And I don't know whether Lions had interest in that. I mean, fiscal interest in the property at that time, whether it was just Carter's or what. I just remember reading through the record. There was an interesting cat fight.
Okay. In our implementation of the management plan, the soil survey, I guess what funds do we have to pay for that? Do we have prospect funds specific?
There is the Baker Fund. I'd have to go back and take a look at it again, but there is the Baker Fund that exists.
Okay.
And I think that we had discussed trying to hire somebody like Rick Van Poel or somebody like that that does ecological surveys, which is different than an in-depth soil survey.
Okay.
I mean, that would be to go out and look and ask whether there's rare endangered species and that type of thing. The forest management plan that, who was it, Tim Nolan did,
Yep.
has the soils in it, if I recall correctly, but that's very coarse because that was done in the old Soil Conservation Service days. But I mean, it's a helpful start.
Okay.
But I think if we were gonna, I mean, the thing is, if we're gonna do a soil survey, you know, a really in-depth one, it would not be cheap. And here, I think it gets down to, you know, if the mountain bike community wants to build something up there, I think some of the onus would be on them to come back to demonstrate that their trails are on dry land and not wetland. And we can use the existing soil, but for the commission to just go out and spend a lot of money on a soil survey.
Right.
Are we doing this for the mountain biking?
Well, I think that's, I mean, I'm reading this because I wasn't at the last meeting, but,
Well, I guess it's more just generally folded into things that were not left hanging in the management plan, but just questions that were asked, like areas of sensitivity that aren't specifically cataloged.
Yeah.
But
So
just
those soils or those plant communities or a combination?
all of those things,
Yeah.
just that in the management or in Tim Nolan's report, like there's sort of generalized language about that, nothing specific. So if we needed to address that specifically, we're just trying to anticipate if we have that information already, or if that's something.
No. I think cataloging the resources there, like, I think that's what we had initially discussed, and possibly that might expose an area that maybe it would be worth then going into a deeper, you know, like, well, what is this, and is this an issue? But
Okay.
like Vanderpool or
Carroll County soils maps are really good. They have already done all that work, so I would go to them, you know, just to look for any little irregularities that might be up there. But their soils maps are pretty extensive.
but I think though that they're, you know, when you got into urban areas and agricultural areas, the density of their soil sampling increases. When you got up into the back forest lands, which would probably be Prospect Farm, then the density of sampling is much less. So it varies, I think, on the resolution of the data that exists is quite variable, but typically in the forest lands, it's low resolution. And I don't believe that SCS has gone back, because I know even when the planning board was working on the soil-based zoning for septics and that sort of stuff, which is what that, you know, is based on, that's part of the reasons why a developer has to come in and demonstrate the soils, because the maps aren't accurate enough, you know, for development scale. Yeah.
Okay.
But in terms of what we're possibly looking to do, would be building biking or hiking or running or multi-use trails. I mean, I think some of that will fall under common sense of, you know, seasonal plants growing in areas. And, you know, I mean, there's there's signs, even if something looks dry, we know it's not.
If you got sedges growing or something, you know you're in wet.
Yeah,
Vernal
exactly, yeah,
field,
so you can start to play that out, like, it's a dry year, you know, but does somebody have to go through and have an in-depth soil test?
But 400 acres, I mean, you know, it's a lot.
Yeah, I don't know anything about
Mm.
the
What the
process.
is.
I work with the soil scientist for wetlands stuff and septic stuff.
Okay.
It's good to have that.
But where was it left with Mike? Was he gonna come back with a proposal?
I think-
No.
Well, I guess my bottom line was that this will have to be something that's spearheaded by an outside
Yeah,
group.
yeah.
That all of the fundraising, coordination, maintenance will be done through them. Especially since as Dick said, the Conservation Commission can't approve anything in that regard, so. I mean, we have access to the tools of what we've already put up there that would help frame how they would go about
Right, yeah.
doing that, so. Yes. So, and I haven't heard anything back from him, so.
I've talked to, I guess I talked to Mike one other time, and then Jeremiah, who is the president of our local NEMBA chapter. And I think the way that we sort of left it with Mike, I think maybe Mike was under the impression that I think what he wanted to do was just to go up there and start flagging areas where he thought we should be putting trails. And I think maybe we just kind of slowed it down a bit and said, hey,
Well, yeah, we definitely discouraged him from doing anything
right,
like
like
that.
before you're flagging or whatever, we as a group should go out together and we can discuss the areas of, you know, the experience we have in that forest and as well as our biking or non-biking experience. And ideally go with somebody from one of the local clubs, so it could be NEMBA or a trail builder, and just, I think it's gonna be a slow process because it's town land and we have to have the town behind us, we can't, once it's brought to the table, it's gotta be done as we've described in our plan, so. I don't think he expected that. I think he thought like, you guys are gonna be okay with this and the process just begins, but unfortunately, I think.
Well, and also just raising to him that the issue of the parking issue, that an outside group would need to negotiate with Valentine for use of that lot if there's gonna be any expanded use up there. So, I think we haven't made any roadmap or anything, but just saying that there are people who are supportive of this in town.
Yeah.
But also just that it needs to be multi-use and it's not going to be a destination mountain biking area, just.
Because I know the Ski Touring Foundation has gotten a lot of, why don't you double the size of the parking lot? Well, because number one is it's not their land, and number two is, there's only a certain volume of traffic that you can put up Carter Notch Road, and then folks on Carter Notch Road are gonna get pretty upset,
Well, it's
yeah.
like the falls, you
Uh,
know, it's
yeah.
like the falls, how many people?
So this
do you
wasn't to
see
be
all the
like the
time?
Northeast Kingdom mountain bike
No.
trail system,
No.
because that's not the place for it.
No.
In fact, I don't know if you follow the Northeast Kingdom, but
They're,
they've had a whole bunch of their trails shut down,
Oh, yeah.
just because of just
yeah,
overuse.
one of the better parts,
Yeah. They just ran into conflict with, that's part of the reason, one conversation I had with Mike way back is, you gotta pay attention to the budding landowners or, this won't work.
Right,
So,
yeah, I
And
think,
the Northeast Kingdom, as I say, is a classic example of something that is a lesson to be learned,
on both ends,
yeah.
the success and the maybe growing too
Right,
quickly.
right.
That's still amazing. It's an amazing spot to go, right?
Is there any winter mountain biking?
Fat biking. I mean, did you say winter?
Yeah, I don't know if it would have any impact out there in the
Currently,
winter.
Jackson Ski Tour doesn't allow any biking on their ski tour trails, so you would be in a you'd be in a sort
Well,
of
we'd
pickle.
have to balance that out. Is
Yeah, it's like-
their trails or?
Right.
Well, the
Is it
fat
on
biking,
land?
yeah, in the winter, typically it's on packed trails.
Right, yeah.
You're not gonna get out on a fat bike and just, unless it's really
Perfect
hard packed,
conditions.
but it's snowmobile trails, et cetera.
Okay.
So any mountain biking there would have to be dependent on Jackson providing the grooming for it.
They probably couldn't even get up there then. Because
No.
your grooming doesn't come from the bottom, does it? Or does it?
It starts right at the Valentine parking
Valentine's
lot.
parking lot, yeah. You can, I mean, snowshoe trails are what fat bikers really want to ride. A groomed ski tour trail is sort of boring. It's like riding on a paved
Snowmobile
road.
trail.
Right, so usually they usually pull something about the width of a car tire behind them. There's little machines that do it too, but so imagine a car tire with luge kind of
Mhm.
surface, and fat bike has to I don't want to say legally, but usually to fit into the regulations of having a fat bike on trails, you need to have a tire that's over 3.8 inches, and the temperature is supposed to be below 32. So that, you know, and then there's a compression. If you're making a trench X deep, you shouldn't be there. So they have their little ways to try to keep everybody happy, but that's usually what you find out if you were to go someplace that allows it and you don't have that, they could ask you to leave.
Whitaker Woods allows it, but periodically.
Right,
And the bulk of their riders, I would call beginner riders. They rented a bike in town,
right, yeah,
and they zip over there. But if you look at, it's posted, you know, today you can't ride your mountain bike because the snow's too soft, or
right.
we just groomed it. So it's an on-off switch.
Which is great because it keeps it's balancing it out, you know? It's like, hey, you get to ride when it's good.
And that's limited just to the town land. There's a
Yeah.
lot of Whitaker Woods goes off town land.
Yeah, I never, I don't ride there.
But like, I mean, their trail system goes down onto the, to the Intervale Flats there, and I don't
Right.
believe you're allowed to ride down
Right, I
there.
don't think.
People do, but it's not legal.
No.
And it's like you can have your dogs in Whitaker Woods, but once you leave the town land, you can't.
Right, so like the Marshall property, the Conway Conservation.
Yeah.
They groom that, they pull a machine, all the stuff up in,
For mountain bike.
Yeah.
For fat
up in
bikes.
Gorham, the Coas trails.
Yeah.
A lot of that gets machine groomed or pulled.
But it's not like getting on snowshoes and just
No.
off into the woods.
Once in a while. Not
Yeah.
mountain bike trails.
Yeah, well, anything else on Prospect Farm for the time being?
No. I'm gonna be gone for about 10, 11 days in the middle of July, and then once I get back, I'll jump on a lot of that stuff. Because
Okay,
then I'm around for the rest of the summer.
okay, thank you. Jackson Falls kiosk and signer in.
Looks
Are the
good.
signs in now?
Yeah, seen people happily using it, looks good.
And I talked to the sign maker for Jackson, and he's willing to make signs. We would just have to buy the material.
I have not heard back. I sent an email to Selectman Campbell about, because they've been asking if we were going to be changing signage. They were talking about the resident or the permit parking. I haven't heard back from her about that, that if we were to do new parking signs, if they would want those to match. But do you have an estimate on what those would cost, or?
The wood is not, I mean, that plastic wood is not inexpensive, and it depends on the bulk. And what we would need to do first is decide which and how many signs, and then I would go back to them and say, these are the signs, and then he would be able to give us the price on the materials.
So he'd have the materials, we don't have to get them?
No, he has to
They
order
were-
them.
Okay.
I just-
And you can order them all different colors, and because once they wrote out the signage, the colors underneath. But my thought was something that was kind of brown with white underneath. I don't know what others think, but that,
You're so traditional.
I'll go with any green, yellow.
Right, we can go from brown. No, I think that the brown and white would be really
Yeah,
nice to look at and still effective as far as visually putting our statement out there.
Yeah. And, I think some of it gets down to, and here I think we have to check with the highway department if I'm correct, because they're the ones that put those signs up. And but, we can do what's up there right now, which is no parking, no parking, no parking. The other alternative is put up signs saying no parking between the sign and the next.
Did not work.
It doesn't work.
But it doesn't work well, yeah. Well, actually, part of that area is signed that way.
It can work.
Yeah, but there were 13 cars up there, was it not this weekend, but the weekend before, between the, opposite the big parking lot down there? Between the signs that said no parking between lines.
There were
signs,
13
it was
cars.
totally full.
Was
So
it?
Because all it takes is one.
once one car goes between the
Yeah,
signs,
everybody
you're
just
not,
follows
you're
it.
just like,
Yeah.
I don't understand this, like, what do you mean? Just,
That's
Well,
why-
we can duplicate the number of no parkings up there. I mean, my thought is the sign would be about yay big by yay big, something like this. And I've looked at, right now they're on, the conventional metal pole there. I think if you put them on those metal poles and just brought them back and then mounted them, because you've got a fence running along there, that would bring them back, so when the snowplow comes, it's not gonna knock them down. And then we did talk about having a sign, if we were gonna put chips, where we have the spots right now for the town residents, and if I understand correctly now, it's town residents and tax-paying residents can park in that zone up there. And I don't know what we end up with a sticker, are we using the town dump
They
stickers?
have, no, they have a special sticker.
They have a special
And
one.
you have to have the special sticker.
You have
So
to have
it's
the
the blue,
special
it's a
sticker.
blue one now?
But we're looking at reserving one of those spaces that said handicap parking 15 minutes for the porta potty.
no, why, I was up there the other day. Why can't, unless there can be no vehicles on Cross Road, why wouldn't we allow that spot to be on Cross Road? If it's 15 minutes, you can't technically park there.
The principal reason is you get out of the car, and it's a straight shot to get to the door.
It's a straight shot,
And we can come around,
it's a straight shot from Cross Road.
except you gotta come around the building to come.
But it is
Just
shorter.
Yeah, it's definitely, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree, it's
And
shorter.
there's also rocks or roots that would be in your way to put in that path between up there and the porta
Yeah,
potty, when I
yeah.
looked at it.
I mean,
You wanna come in off Valley Cross?
I think so, it just seemed.
I looked at it, it was
look-
kinda 6 of
It
1.
seems simpler.
Yeah.
I was
I think so.
like, wait, this just seems like it's begging.
Plus they put the big boulder at the corner, so you can't have 4 spots up there, you can only have 3, once they put the boulder at the corner.
I'm open, but it just, when I was there, I was like, this,
Yeah.
since the car, I mean, technically it's not gonna get to stay there. It has the handicap sign, no one's gonna take that spot. It's not like we're creating a spot, we're just saying.
That's not
hey-
always true, but that's,
Well, I know, but
I know. from
honest
experience.
people honest, so
Yeah, yeah.
hopefully that person does get ticketed. I mean, that's
Plus it might be far
creepy to
in
do.
there.
But it is a 15-minute and it's for
And my
handicap.
recommendation on the handicap signs is not to go with a wooden sign, but to go with conventional.
Yeah,
So people recognize it.
Yeah.
but I do have 2 things for the signs. I'm not opposed to them being in cedar. I'm not, the other synthetic product is probably fine too, but I love wood, so I just thought I'd say that. The sign that's always.
See, I think the question on the wood, and this just gets down to how much time are people willing to volunteer to do what. When those are routed out, they're done.
Right.
And I know from the old Jackson
Oh, yeah.
stickering and from AMC days, you spent a lot of time painting
I know,
the
you're right.
letters. And and number 2 is the plastic wood signs last so much longer.
Yeah,
So then it gets around, because so much of this is dependent on our volunteer time.
right. No, I'm not opposed to it, I just thought I would
Yeah.
If 5 other people said, I want cedar too, I'd be like, okay.
My response would be is who's painting?
Right.
As I was paying for it too.
Yeah.
And then the other part, the sign that's always bugged me, well, there's been a couple, but there's the no parking signs. And then amongst the no parking signs is this, there might be 2 of them that says no parking on pavement.
They should probably get rid of those.
You already are not allowed to park there. It
Well,
says
those are-
no
Yeah,
parking.
right.
Yeah, but
And
those
now
are,
you're basically
yeah.
saying, hey, if you put your car fully on the dirt, which is the worst thing for what we're trying to do, you can park here?
Some of those trucks that are so big now, those pickup trucks, they're actually parked out on the pavement.
Right.
And the head-end parking.
But
I mean,
it's
it's
just,
and if they have a hitch on the back thing, it's sticking out into the
right,
road.
but the no parking on pavement is upriver, it's, because it's where the
Yeah,
embankment is.
But I mean,
We've-
those
we've
signs
always-
have come out.
We've always been frustrated about this parking thing.
We'll just do no, I mean, I'll talk with the highway
That
department.
sign just has to
Just
go.
pull 2 of them, pull those 2
Right.
out.
You cannot park there, so you don't need to know that you can't park on the pavement or the dirt. You're basically allowing someone to be like, well, this doesn't make
I
sense.
think those started though before.
Oh, yeah.
They were.
the
Before the
parking.
no
I think
parking.
at the beginning it was
Right.
just,
Yeah,
you can't park on the
and
road.
people would, they park up on that.
They just keep
Yeah.
further and further into the blueberries.
Yeah, yeah.
Up the-
So,
up
I
the
mean,
side, yeah.
just common sense, stuff like that.
That's
Just
a good point.
make it go away.
Do we need the frequency of the no parking? Because I've got to give
I
them.
don't think so. I think if it's straight,
I think you do though, because, I mean, you can try with less, but I suspect you're gonna.
Well, once you ask the person to set up the machinery, because it's all CEC routed.
why doesn't it just say no parking along road?
But you know, on the
I
Sunday, the Sunday day I was there a couple
You
of
know,
weekends
I
ago.
mean,
Few of the words are better, no parking.
I know, but if it says no parking on road, maybe you can lose 2 signs because like the reason that they're trying, the reason we have to put 15 is because we're leaving a spot large enough for a car to fit in between 2 signs. He's like, well, what do you mean? I'm right here. Like, what do you mean you can't park along the road?
I will do the count of the no parking. We'll leave the signs that say for Jackson residents only as they're conventional, as this agreed. Where we have the handicap parking for the porta potty, we'll have to check and see what's available commercially for that.
Are we gonna do the no parking across the street from the
Oh, we have-
falls too?
I,
I think that's.
we're getting
we're
into
allowed
personal
to.
property at that point.
I think
yeah.
that's the police take care of that.
It is one
I-
sign right now.
Yeah.
I would be willing to say that if for some reason, I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but if someone reached out and said, hey, we would love to be able to have the same signs that you're using along the road
Mm.
on our property, maybe it's something we take care of because we've created this
Yeah.
problem. I mean, we haven't, we're trying to resolve the
Well, it
problem.
might be a matter of talking with Barbara.
Well, I will do a count of the no parkings that up there, and then this, it sounds like we've agreed that where it says Jackson residents will leave the conventional. Those need to be fixed though, because
Oh, they
one of
look-
them is
they look
cockeyed,
terrible.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's
they
really
look
terrible. And then where it's head-in parking, do we want those along that rail? Which would just say head-in parking,
On the
or we
ground,
can leave
you
the
mean-
ones that are there.
You mean on the bumper, on the
Yeah.
ground, is that what you're talking?
No, no, no,
Uh,
at the
the main
parking lot that's open to anybody,
Mhm.
there's signs.
Oh,
Head-in
There
parking.
must be 4 or 5 signs that go down that say head-in parking.
Oh, maybe, I can't remember what they look like, but I know they're there. I don't.
They
know
look
if
like a
need to be
conventional
rebuilt.
metal.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe it's good it catches your eye. It's something different.
Yeah.
The ones that, I think the thing that really distracts people and frustrates people is the 5 different ways of communicating the parking. You know, like now there's now there's Jackson Police Department ones that are all beat up, and then there's personal ones, and then there's old ones, and then there's ours, and then there's like, don't park on the pavement. It's just, if that all just looked the same, I don't care if it goes all the way up to the Eagle. You know, just like whatever we're doing, just make it so everybody gets the feeling like, oh, this is all the same thing. Like, we can't park here.
they need to put the little towing symbol on it.
Well, what
That's
might
what
make
they do on the
sense is,
website.
are we gonna get chips and lay down the matting? And
On the signage, before we go beyond that, before we contract with anybody for making signs, maybe we should go up there, have a meeting up there,
That's what I was
and
getting
walk
at.
it, I've got a big tape, a surveyor's tape measure. And we just decide, we can map it out. We say, okay, well, here's what we would like at these points. Where we already have posts, or we may as well, use the metal posts that are there and say, okay, on this post, we would like, maybe at both ends, we'll have a sign that says, no parking on the pavement. Or one sign up by the bridge that says, no parking on the pavement. Maybe both ends. And eliminate any, cleverness by anybody in between. So I think we should do that.
I agree with you, Dick. I was just gonna suggest if we were gonna go up and spread chips or something, we could do that all in the same meeting, but I don't know where we are.
Chips are probably easy part.
Yeah, I guess it's, if
And
we,
if that's gonna be a while, then I would say let's just go up and have a meeting and have a sign meeting up there.
Because we could do the chips in the fall,
Yeah.
it's not hot.
Do we
Yeah.
wanna do the August
Hank, you
meeting?
wanna go up to the falls and,
Both of them?
yeah.
Yeah, I do that.
Do you have a handout?
Yeah.
We have a video of it.
yeah, I guess we could,
Wanna do the August meeting?
Yeah. that'd be a good,
What day is the August meeting?
it's, the first.
Okay, I have to take my wife to Boston for medical on the first, so I will not be back.
Should we have a super meeting, something before then, so then we can get going on getting the signs for maybe this season?
You'll be gone until,
I'm gone from the 12th from the 11th to the 22nd of July.
well, let's just touch base after your 22nd, I guess.
Okay.
Or coordinate, like, I'm sure you'll go up there and walk and.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be happy to go up and have the Ken Kimball plan, but I think Dick is right. I think we all ought to go up and.
I think you could look at it and make notes, and it would be accommodated by any group that gathered up there.
Yeah, you can start with the Ken plan, and then we can tweak it.
But it's much easier, I think you're right, it's much, we'll spend 15 hours because we semi-envision what it is.
Right.
It makes a lot more sense
See the
just to
stuff
go up.
across the
Yeah,
street.
yeah.
And
Okay, well, I'll work on that. We were offered a picnic table to replace the picnic table that's falling apart at the lower area. I don't know what the precedent or practice of accepting things from.
I don't think we have any.
I think they're giving it to the town,
Sure.
probably not to us.
Yeah.
I
replacing-
think the Conservation Commission and the RSA, and I don't have it, but I think the RSA allows us to accept money,
Gifts for the, yeah.
gifts and money. I believe it does. So I'm not sure it needs to go to the selectmen.
Well, they
No, I
also
don't
ask
think so
us.
either. I think that in the past, the Conservation Commission has autonomy over something like that. I don't know if there's a price limit on it.
I'll look it up and, we could look up the RSA right now, but the RSA has something in there, I just don't remember. So I don't want to say,
I think
but
they
if it says we can, then I think we don't need to bother the selectmen on it.
Well, I think they were asking us.
Well,
Yeah.
just the way that it came to us was very roundabout. Like, it didn't come through the selectmen, it came through,
Is it Julie?
it came through e-news, like, it got bounced back through e-news to me, so,
Okay.
like, and I can stop and talk with Dawn, but, I was just thinking, I know that people have made gifts to the town, or like the bench issue, and then it's lost track of time of who particularly donated what particular bench, and if you've changed something, you've now hurt someone's feelings, or just
Yeah.
regarded some member of the community who thought to make a donation in the past, and
My thought would be that I just don't want any sign on it saying data. If they want to give it, great, but no
Attribution,
attribution exactly.
other than in the public meeting
Yeah.
that we discussed it.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think because it's like for like, we're not adding.
But I think one thing if it says it was gifted by, which is a form of advertisement almost. It's another thing if it's a tribute to somebody because
I
then
still
we
don't-
run into problems because the tribute, after a couple of generations, it's who?
Right,
Yeah,
which is what
yeah,
is the case with all the benches, so,
yeah.
okay.
But I'll look up the RSA and see whether we can just accept it straight out.
Okay. Well, and I was hesitant to just go down there and pull it and make it disappear without having a discussion about it in a meeting, so.
This is the lower table,
Yes.
correct? Yeah.
And, I mean, it's, the top and the bench are falling apart, the frame looks sound and solid. And it looks like it's been repaired before because all the screws are all,
Mm-hmm. That's been repaired. Do you know if Don's is like hemlock or is it PT or
I had, like,
Western red cedar?
there was no,
Plastic.
there was no direct method to contact him back other than just stopping and talking with him.
Oh, okay.
But if the current one has got semi-stable seats, etc., we actually have a liability problem.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's enough of an eyesore at the moment, people
Yeah.
would not want to use it.
So it can disappear?
But little Johnny sits on and plays on
No,
it.
electric
They
chainsaw.
put a sign on it that says unsafe. Use it your own risk, yeah.
It can make it disappear.
Okay.
Okay, yeah. That's right, make it go away.
Pam wants a new,
No, I think it would make great, put it in the woods and let it decompose, right?
alright.
Break it down,
Unless it's pressure treated wood.
And I don't think.
I don't think
I
it
think
is.
it's all hemlock.
Yeah,
that'd be another liability.
Alright.
okay.
Borrow your pen.
What's that?
Do you have anything else about Jackson Falls?
I have one thing about the kiosk. It's not a criticism so much as just something I think we might want to keep an eye on. I think it might want to be braced.
He did mention that, well, was it-
It's tough to get that. You don't know what it's going to feel like until you bolted it to the 4x4s.
yeah, and he ended up having to pin it to the ledge. So there's a footing there that's pinned to the ledge, so the footing is strong.
Right.
And I was trying to think of what the best way to do that, would either an internal guy or like just back down to the leg.
I think it's just from coming off of it's the leverage of the kiosk itself. You know, with a really good wind, it's going to generate it's going to weaken itself. Is my feeling. The 4x4 connection to the bracket. It's a lot.
It's a big sail.
Yeah, it'd be very simple and it wouldn't have to be ugly, but I just think it can't be allowed to generate that kind of movement because it'll be short-lived.
Okay. Well, I guess when the picnic table is disappearing,
Yeah, we can
take
look
a
at it. I mean, there's ways. I give it the 2-minute look, you know, just how like,
Yeah, I looked at it, I did a little push test.
Yeah.
and-
it could be trouble down the
Okay.
road. And it's nice, so it's like, don't let it get that slop, it's just starting to generate, and then the movement gets greater. We can nip it at the bud pretty quick.
Okay.
Just remind me.
Well, I should probably have some free time at the end of this week, so I'll send an email out.
But it's awesome. It's good it's there.
Gray's Inn.
No, I know the kids, camps and groups of kids have been out on the trail, which is awesome. The Mystery Loop, it's been getting used. There's still a tree down, but
I didn't hear back about the poison ivy.
Likely that somebody needs to spray it. So it's been cut really wide. That's what she said she was going to do. I don't know if it actually got sprayed.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that was one of those email chains where it's like, I don't, like, this seems like
Yeah.
a library issue, but it also, just coincidentally, I ran into Dean Crowther, and we were talking about goats. And he said they're quite effective in managing it, but it does take time, and the person that he recommended, their phone number is no longer active, so it might take a little bit more effort or also like trying to incorporate larger town areas to make it worthwhile for them to be here for a week, several weeks of moving them around to the various areas, so.
I think the conclusion was that Lycan had called somebody who was going to come, I think it was Valley Green, who was going to come out
And
and
spray.
spray. And I think the town was going to pay for it. That seemed what Barbara was offering.
Okay.
What do the goats cost? We don't know
In trying to find someone local, Dean had this recommendation, but it
Okay.
didn't pan
Yeah.
out, so
And I know somebody on West Side who does it, except that,
that's
It's
who he
like-
recommended, so.
yeah, the problem with that, I think, is that she thinks she gets poison ivy from the products. But I suspect it might be more off the coats maybe than consuming. I'm just thinking.
Oh, you think that the milk
She
carries?
thought it was the milk or the meat that gave her poison ivy, but I was watching some YouTube guy who had a herd of goats and he wouldn't let them eat the poison ivy, said, because he gets poison ivy from taking care of them after they've been through it.
Right, the oils
Because of-
are on there.
Yeah, so I'm thinking maybe it might really be that as opposed to getting it from consumption.
I would be hard pressed to think a natural,
Yeah.
something like that wouldn't get broken down in the digestive system of a animal.
Yeah.
Because they would be, well, who knows?
But then there's a lot, hearing back too.
It's my understanding there is a spray now that is poison ivy specific. And it's only available to licensed applicators. But I'll find out some more because we're looking into it at home. Because we have an incredible infestation. And I think that in one or two applications, they take care of poison ivy.
Well, I think I think there was a time issue of getting it done, so if they're going to spray it, we'll probably be able to see results soon. But they just kind of dropped off when they said that, anyways.
I'll check with Lycan, see what she says.
I just don't want to see people going with Roundup, which works on poison ivy too. Of course, it kills everything else, but it's also bad for people.
Right. And
Although it's still marketed.
I think it kind of came down to like having someone professional with a license spraying stuff, so.
Well, if the town was gonna do spraying, I mean, a lot of your Japanese knotweed is popping up roadside again. You might as well hire an applicator to come in and treat all of the above at once. And usually it's cheaper than having person X and then person Y. That's the highway department that
Right.
does the knotweed, if I'm correct. Is that your recollection, Dick?
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's see, we go back with, I think Phil Davies got some knotweed mitigation 10 years ago. Through the Conservation Commission, I think then the town did some because I know that up at the old dump site, there's quite a infestation up there. And a number of roadside situations. So I think it's a balance between Conservation Commission, the town itself, it's wherever you can scrounge up the money and the will to do that. And I think it was a lot of input from residents that wanted the knotweed out of there.
I remember,
It's like 2 or 3 years ago, they sprayed last time roadside, I think.
um,
Because there was quite a bit on Carter Notch Road, there was quite a bit on Wilson Road. There's a bunch around the pond near the golf course pond out here. And I know we went out, when I first got on, we were out there trying to cut it
mhm.
next to the Wildcat, which was futile.
But I just read that people are now eating it.
You can eat it young stuff, when it's very young, it's like
Yeah,
asparagus.
that'd be a good time to
Yeah,
pack it.
it's just there's so much. Yeah, and I think you're right, Dick, it was about 10 years ago that the town reached out to residents because residents had an opportunity to use the applicator, and a bunch of people on Green Hill
Yeah,
had their property sprayed when the town was having the red spray. And it was effective.
But if you're gonna bring an applicator in to do poison ivy, then it may be cost effective
yeah.
to have them treat both of them simultaneously. I mean, it would be different chemicals probably, but a lot of times you're just paying for them to get here.
But also with invasives, it's never over.
That's right.
Right.
It's just gonna keep going on.
Right. Okay. Community garden.
Well, we're up and running, we almost have the rest of the fence put on. I've got 6 beds occupied, 1's left, if anybody knows anybody who might want a bed. So I think we're doing well. Bob Santoro's offered to, he built the gate, and he's offered to put underground line from the library to the community garden and have an underground control system for drip irrigation to the beds. But the town's been great because they want to make sure that the gates are wide enough so they can get in there and mow. So they've been very, Gary Allen's been great. Couldn't ask for anything more.
Excellent.
Couldn't have been easy putting those posts in. There's so many rocks.
Yeah, it's just rock.
Well, excellent. I like your if that was the bed that you mentioned. I like
Planting of pumpkins.
planting it with pumpkins. Have some
Yeah.
conservation commission pumpkin people or something. Or
Pick a person that you get to create yourself.
Give them to the grammar school.
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
So you get pumpkins you could eat, as opposed to pumpkins you just smash.
Wow.
You wanna get them in the ground pretty quick now,
I
though.
know, that's
Yeah.
true. Is it too late?
You're not gonna have a monster, but
Yeah.
you'll have something.
Mm.
It'll be in the pumpkin squash family.
Well,
I don't know it's too late.
No, it's just the timing between, if you're putting in seeds to.
Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, okay. I
It's
think
still
we
fun.
Yeah.
It's better than nothing.
You might go down to Lucy's or something and see real
get
quick
something
if they-
started.
Mm.
if they've got 6 or 8 that are still kicking around or wherever.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Good point.
I've got seeds if you need seeds.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I probably put butternut squash in myself. Like, well, better run.
I don't think we have any
Okay. very
wildcat-ish things. Nothing conservation easements or wetlands.
And just on the wildcat, just real briefly, how do we leave it with the manure?
Have you noticed that it's growing again?
Yeah, I mean, I just know that we're gonna have the same conversation next year,
What's growing again? Then,
the manure.
The manure pile?
Maybe down to the gardens time.
It's not a matter of the critique, it's just like, we know how this happens, it's just like how it used to be with the dam for the water, for the snowmaking, everybody seems surprised, oh my goodness, I can't believe, it's like, really?
again, yeah.
It's like, and I know it's not we don't enforce it and we don't need to, I just was more wondering has there been a conversation? Did he reach back to us saying, hey, this is what I'm doing?
No, he did not, and I have not, beyond what the letter was, and
So the pile's next to the brook, is that what you're saying?
Well, there's still,
it's closer to the road, to the brook, but it is adjacent to the brook, and the winter pile got moved, but driving by it the other day, there was fresh manure on it, so.
On the winter?
well, let's put it this way. There's the winter pile that grows and doesn't move, if that's what we want to call it. That pile finally got moved, but that location is the location for the daily piles.
The summer pile.
So which is that wrong? Who knows? But I think the matter is just the best practice technique of it's along the shoulder of a road that's on a hill. And all the water comes across the road and it hits that spot. And then there's a brook on the other side which goes to a wild scenic river. You know, there's
Doesn't
a
that
pond.
go into their pond?
Yeah, I mean, there's just all those
That's
things.
their pond, but
And
No,
every thing is sloped. Either
The
into
stream goes down and then they have a little diversion, of which some of the water goes into the pond and comes back out of the pond and goes down. And the other just parallels the road.
It's
Where's
just
that go?
not the best
They
spot.
just merge again.
Okay.
It's like putting the manure.
I think it's the
in-
reason they closed the swimming.
Well,
pool.
there's also been an algae bloom right in Whitney's Pond.
Right.
I mean, when they recommended not using it.
Right. I mean,
We used to go up there and swim all the time because it was open, and then they
Right.
shut it down because of the health issue. But then in addition, Rick Davis used to have his pigs that were right off Dundee Road that was also contributing directly into that. I mean, you had,
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
you had
it's-
quite a bit of that.
And also upstream a little further, two horse people had, you know,
right along Great Brook.
right, so, I mean,
So it's just that black happens to be visible?
Very visible.
Yeah, well, the problem is that's, your coliform's gonna show up at Wildcat Falls.
But nobody's testing.
But again, we shouldn't even have to. It's kind of like, that's why the rule is best practice. Like, this is how you deal with the problem, so everybody doesn't have to pay money to go test every body of water because we're concerned with what you're doing. It's like,
But if
we
you
can
get it
nip it in the
tested and you
bud.
show them how coliform, at least you can go to them and say, you know, this is why we need to move your piles. I'm just saying, I mean.
Yes, that's true, but there's also the paperwork that already says your manure is going into a pitched parking lot,
Mhm.
which pitches into the road drain, the road crosses the road, takes that, and if it doesn't go that way, it goes down the other pitch of the driveway into the river directly, so.
So do you want to put this in the hands of the town and make a recommendation or anything like that, or another letter, or what do you want to do?
Maybe we just discuss it with the selectmen, I don't know. Aren't we just, at this point, Explained it.
We've made our position clear.
Yes, and the RSA that governs that, the enforcement body is the State Department of Agriculture. And so,
It's also a nuisance, so it could come under other things as well.
yeah, I suppose, but the thing that specifically of horse boarding facilities, that there is a rule regarding this practice. But I don't know beyond that, well, from my understanding of reading that the best practices was that they would inspect it and give them a period of time to remediate, which would just, in that case, be removing it. Like, they don't necessarily have to build, like, long-term storage would need to be like a roof covered, something that just keeps surface water from mixing with it and flowing. So,
in the pile that they generate, they could do that with 6 pallets. You know what I mean? We're not talking about like some steel structure. It's not even that much manure. It's just the concept of it should be covered. At least not put into that spot where could it create more runoff anywhere? I mean, is there a place that would run off better than that? I can't think of one.
Correct.
That's kind of the point. There?
Is it because it's close to the road, so it's easily you know, I guess if they ever remove
It
it.
is convenient for them.
I mean, do they want people to come and get it for their gardens? Or do they
They
use it?
take it away. Someone's using it currently.
They just store it till they get enough for someone to come
So
get it.
it's easy access, that's what it comes down
It
to.
sounds like. There's so many ways.
But there's
to
no
make-
riparian buffer.
No, there's so many ways to make that easy regardless. You know what I mean? Move it to a different spot that's easy. Put it in the trailer that's sometimes there. I don't know their
We
system.
could do another letter and just basically say, we've noticed that you relocated your pile back into the
Second
same place.
notice.
Second notice, yeah.
Yeah, same letter maybe. Just say second notice on it.
I can't imagine that the selectmen want to get into any tiff.
Well, if it's a health issue.
It is, I mean, I guess just sort of trying to anticipate the character that is driving this. And also my, like, just not wanting to go talk to them in person, so.
I 100% agree, except we're enabling the behavior. And I'm tired of enabling people who don't follow the same rules that we feel we have to follow. Why? We don't need to enable it. This is the rule. Fortunately, or unfortunately, we're on this committee. This is what this committee tells us we're supposed to do. You know, so it's not our job to have that conversation, is it?
Well, that or like I mean, we could send another letter, but I think without having some sort of, this is our second letter, we still can't do anything about this other than refer it to the state or.
Yeah, but that's it. People complain to us
Yeah.
saying like, why is there manure still on Black Mountain?
We
Right.
could also refer it to the town and let the town take it up with their council and see what other options they have available.
Right.
Okay.
Like if other people didn't think it was a problem and we didn't see it in writing, then we wouldn't have to discuss it.
If Mary
Yeah.
Howe were here, she'd be
Oh,
all over this.
yeah, I mean, for no other reason, you
Right.
know? She's a warrior.
Mhm.
If it's perfectly fine, then we can just drop it right there and that can,
Well, your other alternative is to send a letter to the Department of Agriculture with a CC, you know, and include the first letter and just say, we now have a repeat, but we need to demonstrate that there's a repeat.
yeah.
And
Because we don't know in second, third, fourth, doesn't matter who it is, we don't know second, third, fourth letters at some point. If they're back to doing it, then you report it to the agency that has the jurisdiction, which if correct is the Department of Agriculture, that's where the next letter would go, with a CC to the person who's.
And who knows,
causing the issue.
and who knows by doing that, how many, if there's a folder, they pull it out and go like, yeah, you know what, we're sick of this thing.
well, that's what I was gonna. I guess the next step that I could do is I can contact them because they do keep track of complaints and they won't investigate. It was interesting language in how that they would handle repeat offenders.
Yeah. But you'd want to send a CC to the person
Mm.
Yeah.
who's the offender as well.
Mhm.
I just mean reaching out to them and
Yeah.
if the state has on file that this is an ongoing issue or if people outside of it have reached out to them and if that's not something that they're willing to pursue. So,
And then I think it's, you know, here we are in front of the camera, it's not as if we're picking on anyone for any reason, it's more because it's been presented to us, so we want to feel like we're doing something wrong by pursuing something that's been brought to our attention.
yeah, okay. I'll work on a letter or a slightly different worded letter. Maybe just go talk, see if I can get because I see them out with the horses frequently, so maybe I just find out who's the manager of the stables. And if they've been made aware
Yeah, yeah.
that there's an issue with the town. So, okay.
What's the issue with the state, technically,
Well, it's both.
right? That the state creates the rule of how the horse manure can be handled. Towns in the state. They live in the town.
Right,
We're not making rules, we're just
yes.
saying, please do this so that the state doesn't have to enforce them.
Correct. Are you're involved with the Saco Valley Land Trust, or have you been? Well, they have a strategic conservation plan that they've sent out, asking us scoring on a number of issues of ranking priorities. Are you comfortable for me? I'll try to find it again.
How did you get it? I didn't.
I didn't get it, yeah.
I didn't get it.
Okay, well, I'll forward it to you then. They also reached out about,
Is this about the Dundee project, or is this about
just as
general?
like general regional conservation, just coordinating conservation movements or
Yeah,
actions across the region. And then they also reached out about working on a wild and scenic river designation for the Saco River.
they did call me, and I mean, they've been talking to a number of folks, so I did talk with them about it.
That they have so Monday the 18th, they have a Zoom meeting. It starts at 4,
Yeah.
it goes from 4 to 6. I don't think I probably.
July 18th?
Yes. And I'll just forward both of these to the group if anyone has interest
Yeah.
in representing the
I'm
commission.
gonna be backpacking then, so
Okay.
I don't have any electronic communications. But I did talk with him. Yeah, I mean, my recommendation to them is that there's a couple other things they ought to look at in addition to wild and scenic, because wild and scenic may not be doing what they think.
Well, just looking through the classification system, just because of the current usage of the Saco, we received the lowest classification as a recreational river.
Yeah, it's more complicated than that because, I mean, my recommendation to them was, first ask what you're trying to achieve and then ask what system best helps you get there. But wild and scenic typically controls federal action, and the reasons why the Wildcat got put in is there was a proposed hydroelectric facility which is permit licensed by the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is a federal action, which is the reasons why the town went in the direction of wild and scenic designation, because that's the entity that was going to determine whether there was going to be a hydroelectric dam at the top. I mean, historically there was one, but what was being proposed was even bigger than that. The threat of hydroelectric development on the Saco was pretty minimal because there isn't storage, etc., out there. So, I mean, when I sat down with them, I suggested, here's a couple other things to look at, but you may be seeking a designation to protect you from something where the risk is extremely low.
Mm-hmm.
And to get wild and scenic designation is a long and laborious process. So to, also take a look at just how much manpower, et cetera, you're going to dedicate in this direction before you go. There are national river trails and some other designations that may be the best. And so my recommendation to them was to go back, take a look at these. I mean, first ask what it is you're trying to achieve, and then ask of these different designation systems, which is the one that's going to best help you, protect what you're really after. But wild and scenic may not be.
So is it water quality? Is that what they're trying to do?
Well, it varies. I mean, they've talked to a lot of people, and you talk with people who are landowners that have recreational issues because of the high, canoe tubing. Then you can talk with other people that like to see land protections. I mean, and they're getting not surprising when you go out and just ask the general public, what do you want? You'll get a lot of different opinions out there. And that's why they're talking to various people at this point. But they, I think, had latched onto Wild and Scenic pretty early. And they looked at Jackson and, having been involved in that history, understand the reasons why Wildcat went there is because, and when you read Wild and Scenic and you ask, okay, you got the designations, but what does that designation actually, help you on? Well, it helps you with federal actions. And the risk on Saco from federal actions is probably pretty minimal.
Well, I'll forward that along. They had some questions, and also the scoring sheet. It seemed fairly general. So if you want to respond to that, or I can just.
I mean, you've taken on a lot. I'm happy to fill it out for the commission if you want somebody to fill it out for the commission.
Okay.
The scoring sheet.
It was very simple.
Yeah.
And I think we can take a look at it and see if there's any priorities that we need to look at. I think there weren't anything specific to our needs in Jackson other than just maintaining undeveloped spaces. So.
But the other thing that happened when the Wildcat got in is the town had to demonstrate some inch, and that's when the river ordinances came into the zoning laws, etc.
I guess as a side question to that, so what access do we have we have a river with a federal designation. How do we use that as, say, someone's dumping nitrogen and, surface contaminants into the water that are directly impacting a protected river?
I think, the primary thing, and I think it was in your first letter, if I remember correctly, is these are nationally designated wild and scenic. The town voted them in, and you're using that as sort of bully pulpit leverage. But the feds aren't going to come in to do something. If it's actually causing water pollution, you'd go to the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, because that's the enforcement agent of the Clean Water Act here in the state. If it was a federal action that was causing the pollution, if it was a federal department, then it's a different ballgame, but that's not the case here.
Okay.
But this would go to DES or, we don't have the coliform bacteria counts, but if they were showing up and people are swimming in, and they do, have a lot of bodily contact at the falls there, then you have a public health issue.
Well, maybe we should be checking the levels, just because, say they do have the manure pile there and it isn't causing any problems downstream, it might be worth knowing.
Yeah. Well, typically what you'd see with coliform bacteria counts is, and this is, I think what Brian was talking about, is if you have a drought, you can have a pile that's 1,600 feet tall and it's still not going to do anything. And then you start to have rain, that's when it's going to start to move it into your streams. So if you're going to sample, you want to actually sample, not just run out and grab a sample, but you want to go out and, after you've had some major rain events, because that's what's needed to make it migrate.
Okay. We also received this permit by notification that logging on a parcel off of Dundee, backside of Dundee. In the event where we get just sort of notification for things, it's
just they're letting us know.
just
that
letting you know it's occurring.
They've
And
done it. They've permitted, like the logger who they hired is.
Is it over a certain number of acres, or why are we getting the notification for this one?
Oh, okay.
it's a large parcel. I looked at it on the tax map.
If it's over a certain size cut, yeah, then there's a different notification that we receive. I just connected the U.S.
You have to look at this.
It's not Forest Service. This is private, a private cut.
I believe so.
So it must be big.
R30 lot.
It doesn't have to be that big to need a permit, because then it gets into the timber taxes.
Right, we're thinking, what's
Well, we never
the,
get them though. I mean, I don't recall getting one of these before, do you?
what's it called when someone is disturbing over a certain number of acres, like, when Couture? That's kind of how we thought we were going to manage him, is that he initially was developing his property in small parcels, saying, hey, this is all I'm doing, but when you took all those parcels and added it up, it's like, hey, you're way beyond. And that's when he had to slow down and be like, well, oh yeah, you got it. I don't remember what that's called. That's what I thought maybe this was.
What, the notice to cut?
Hmm?
No, notice to cut, is that what?
Yeah, but there's a notice to cut, but then there's when you have to start following different regulations. I just can't remember
Over a certain.
the term. Yeah, because you could damage the amount of land that you're.
Yeah, it's the acreage
Yeah.
it kicks in a higher, I know with the shoreline protection, that's what it is that if you're under a certain foot, you can, well, I guess because it's a permit by notification, that it's probably under that limit,
Correct. Yeah.
so.
Just the fact that if you screwed up, you could screw up royally and really affect a lot of people.
Well, I think the permit by notification is it's requiring groups like this commission to be notified. And if we have an issue, we've been notified so that we can raise the issues that we have. So the question is, do we have any issues?
Right.
But if we don't, we can remain silent.
Right, so in that case, is it like drive by from the road, see if things are conforming? It's not,
Where is it? Where is the
Oh.
lot?
it's on Dundee,
R30.
on the backside,
Let me go get them.
I think probably below the Ham House area, I don't know.
Jesse, you know about that?
No, I'm gonna look it up.
R30 lot 15A.
Is it part of the parcel that's being sold? Of the Beal?
It looked like it was in that, so it would be,
Here you go. Gonna go big or go home, right? Okay, 15A. Lot 30, lot 15A.
207 acres. So, Dick, it's
Dick, where's your property?
it's right across the street from you. It's across from Cross Road.
Oh, I have to wait a minute.
That was on my other list of things I heard
So
about
15A,
that lot that's
so you're
sold.
Cross Road, right? So it's right, 15A is right here.
Yeah, so that's the Beal property. Oh, no,
No, it's not.
no, that's Dinsmore.
Yeah, that's Dan
Yeah.
Dinsmore.
Because this is May, right there. So I would say this is
Right, because this is Dinsmore.
Dinsmore.
In that notice, they might have said how many acres they're going to.
Yeah, because her house is right here, right?
Yeah. So let's see,
Across the
that's
front.
across the, so yes, and then that's the schoolhouse, or we're right across from the schoolhouse. They don't
Yeah.
have the schoolhouse on there. So that's the red house.
Right.
So, yeah, this would be
So this is the.
Stephen Dinsmore,
Huh.
who owns it now. Well, Dan's gone, so.
Right. He was on the commission.
Yeah.
Yep.
That was what I wrote the meetings with.
Yeah.
So we would be late together.
Yeah. Yeah. Huh.
I mean, there's nothing specific on the permit.
But I mean, that size of cut. I'll look up what that's called, the land. So is that the,
Well, the permit should outline how much they plan to cut.
Well, what the town was saying, what was forwarded to me from Julie. is very basic. It's just a list. There's no information as to the size of cut or what the type of cut.
Or the RSA, because at least you could look up the RSA and you know what it's below. I would think.
Well, I'll forward this along.
Yeah, dude.
Thanks.
I guess it just looks like whatever the rules for obtaining forestry statute permit by notification.
Is that the land that I thought people maybe started talking about being developed on the backside of Tyrell? I thought it was in the paper or something.
Well, no, they're selling Tyler, 200 acres.
Well, just,
So-
okay.
That's the old,
3 or 4
Base lodge.
buildings, yeah, it
Yeah.
is. It's, no, not just the old base lodge,
Right.
it's 200 acres, it's
Yeah.
the mountain that they, part that they own. It goes down below, I think, all that too.
That's kind of freaky.
Yeah, well, hopefully Upper Saco Valley or somebody might be in a little bit, don't know.
Wow. Okay, that's why I saw the 200 acres and 200. I was like, this isn't the same because in theory they probably connect.
I know,
You don't think
I don't think they're the same because I think that, I don't think Tyrell.
I guess like Jackson Highlands is in between that one. That
Mm.
Well, no, not if you go
No.
down.
Taro used to have a trail
Right, it came all the
that
way
went down toward
the
Dundee.
fields.
Yeah, you can still see the
It-
difference in the forest
It
vegetation.
would be,
Go down to the chairlift, down at the bottom.
Yeah.
yeah, which would be about the end of Van Dinsmore's property, because that's how we used to hike in.
Right.
That's why it's
So
like,
that's cool.
that's,
Yeah, you know, I've gone through the conservation land and gotten over to Dundee that way.
mm,
There used to be a cross-country ski trail.
yeah,
Kind of found it a few years ago, I know it
Yeah.
made sense. But that's where the new Dundee Forest is going to be now.
mhm. Hopefully.
Yeah.
okay.
Are we calling this meeting to adjourn?
Well, I was just unless if you want to do more research on that or just do a drive-by.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, I know the spot,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm working uphill. I'm sure we'll see Dick scouting.
When I say Dick is
I'll look
our
into it
scout
a
in the
little further
neighborhood.
too.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's a beautiful forest.
Okay. I think that is everything. I hear a motion to adjourn.
I will make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second that motion.
Second. All in favor?
Is that a motion or an emotion?
We're all,
Any emoji?
Thank you, Ben.
yeah.
Thank you, Ben.
I say no one's opposed. We're done. Thank you.
No.
Um,